when I was young, I was a dumb kid living in Philadelphia. I didn't believe in voting. I thought it was a joke. I thought it didn't really work. And fortunately, I grew up and learned some things. But what I try and do is not shame somebody for not voting. I might be internally frustrated, but I try and not shame them. So when you would come across somebody who maybe didn't want to be engaged, what would you say to talk to them but not shame them?
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you said that, and I'm glad that you phrased it that way because that's exactly what we do. We engage voters. We don't shame voters. And you're saying that you were young and foolish. I was that way. I had some of those beliefs even when I was not so young. When I first moved to the South when I was 28, I wasn't into voting. It was because I moved to Alabama, to Selma, Alabama. That's where I really first learned the lessons of how powerful this electoral organizing could be. And so when we have conversations, I rooted in that experience. When somebody says that they're not feeling it, that they don't think it's important, that they're not sure if their vote counts, one of the first things I say is, look, I feel you. I've been there. In fact, there are days I do this work every day, but there are still days when I wonder to myself whether or not this is a legit process, right? There are still days, kind of like yesterday, even because before we got the election results, unfortunately, one of the things that we heard was, I'm sure you know about the news, that in the Jacob Blake shooting, that the police officer
Yes,
is not going to be facing any challenges. And so on
yes.
days like that, especially, I ask myself, is this really a legit process? Is this really what I need to be doing to build power for my community, right? It seems like there needs to be so much more to get people to respect our humanity. So when people answer that way, that's the kind of conversation I can have. The first thing that we do is we affirm what they're saying. Because when somebody gives those reasons and those frustrations, we need to let them know you're not lazy and you're not crazy, right? We don't shame them, as you correctly pointed out. We hear them. We say we hear you, and we listen, and we affirm that what their lived experience is actually real, right?
Mm.
After we do that, though, we can then pivot to say, tell me what it is that's important to you. Tell me what it is that you'd like to see for your community. And when we can engage in that conversation that makes it clear to them that what we're centering is them and their lives and their hopes and their dreams, and not just the voter registration form, when we can make it clear that we really care about them as a person and not just care about their vote, right? When we can have that kind of a dialogue, then people start to shift and they become more willing to talk about it. And then sometimes by the end of the conversation, that person that wasn't engaged and was very skeptical, they may turn out being our best organizer because we centered them and not just voting as a ritual.
Such a great point because a lot of it is propaganda. When I was in school, I didn't have a civics class. So part of the reason why I didn't vote as well, because I didn't even understand how voting worked. I didn't understand the electoral college. It's these things it wasn't taught in my school. And so that's such a disservice. And it's important to have folks like you who are on the ground really doing that work. All right. So black votes matter. Black voters matter. It's not just about voting. Voting is one tool in the toolbox. So, Cliff, how can we hold them accountable? God willing, we get John Ossoff in, then we'll have the majority of the Senate, right? Or we'll have Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader. There's certain things that I want. I think I'm too progressive sometimes, but what can we do to say, okay, we got you? Like, I want to see the Electoral College abolished. Probably isn't going to happen, but I at least would love to see student loan. I would love to see student loan debt forgiven, 50 some $1,000. Like, what can we do as Black folks who voted in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan to hold them accountable?
Yeah, the same things that we did to get voters out is the same thing that we have to do to empower voters so that we can hold elected officials accountable. And this goes for everybody from the top of the ticket all the way on down to local offices. But it's amazing. It's always been amazing to me how campaigns and politicians and even the party, they know how to reach us to get us our votes, right? But when it comes to like engaging us in the process, engaging us in accountability, informing us of what's going on during the legislative session, then all of a sudden they act like I don't know how to find you. Like I don't know how to get information to you. Well, you knew how to get information to me when you was trying to get me to vote for you. So you need to
Yes.
use those same mechanisms. And that's what we say as an organization. The same texting tools that we make available to our partners to get out the vote, we make it available to our partners so that they can do the other power building mechanisms to get people to show up at a city council meeting, to get people to attend a legislative session at the state capitol, right? Or to do a town hall with one of these senators that we're about to elect, right? To make sure that we're communicating with them, to make sure that we're sending email campaigns the same way we send email campaigns to get somebody to vote. We can send email campaigns to tell them how they can get involved in holding these elected officials accountable. The same tools that we use to mobilize for elections, we have to use 365. We say it all the time. Black Voters Matter 365. The partnerships that we build, the organizations that we support. We don't give financial resources to our local organizations just so that they can do the election cycle. We give it even when it's not the election cycle. We don't just show up in October. We give our financial support and our tools even in January, maybe not January because I need a couple of weeks off, right? But maybe in January and February and March, we're still doing a lot of the same relationship building, the same training, the same capacity, and the same regranting so that people can be engaged in the process, this accountability process all throughout the year. So what you're raising is exactly what we're about. We're not in this just to put Black faces into high places, right? We're in this because we want power for our community. And ultimately, we do this so that we can get our community to rethink their fundamental relationship to the process, to view themselves as the drivers of the process and not just the passengers that ride on the bus. That's why we do this work.
Well, I mean, I hear you as far as not just to get black faces in high places. Look at Tim Scott, but that's another conversation. So that's another conversation. Before you go, I do want to ask you. I'm feeling a bit optimistic about this upcoming administration. I think that Joe Biden has the potential in his team to be somewhat like a LBJ, a Lyndon B. Johnson. Are you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling like, you know what, there could finally be some fundamental transformative change? Are you feeling that?
I'm feeling as optimistic as I feel optimistic about our community, right? In other words, this Biden is not necessarily a transformative figure, right? In fact, to a
Right.
large extent, part of the reason why not just the country as a whole, but even the Black community, part of the reason why we support him is because he's not so transformative, right? We thought he was a safe option, right? And so it left to his own devices, that's not him, right? And he
Right.
said this in previous comments, if we could just go back to the pre-Trump days. And we've tried to tell him during the primary season and even now, the pre-Trump days weren't all that great either, right? This isn't about just going back to the way things were before Trump, because the reality is there were conditions that gave birth to Trump. There were
That's right.
conditions in that party. There were conditions within government. There are conditions in this society that literally gave birth to Trump. So we're not just trying to go back to the pre-Trump days. We're trying to move forward to a different vision, a more transformative vision, to use your word. He's going to have to be pushed in that direction because that's not his natural inclination. It doesn't appear to be the inclination of the folks that he's putting in some of these positions. He's done a good job with some of these picks, but some of them are safe picks. Some of them are throwbacks to the Obama years, right? Some of them are, they're going to do a good job, but not necessarily transformative. We're going to have to push him and
Yeah.
his administration to be more transformative on some of these issues.
Yeah. Just like Lyndon B. Johnson was pushed. He was a stone cold racist and he was pushed. So there's some possibility there.